during the mid to late 90s, there used to be like a trend in which two movies that were released during the same exact year were very similar in regards to plot and themes, almost to the point where they're mistaken as exact copies of the other movie. Like for example, there's Dante's Peak and Volcano, both movies released in 1997 that involve obviously a volcano erupting in different cities or small towns. There's also Armageddon and Deep Impact. Both movies released in '98 that involve like a comet crash landing on Earth and astronauts going up to the sky to try and put a stop to it. And then there's End of Days and Stigmata, both movies from '99 that involve Satanism, and the Thomas Crown Affair and Entrapment, two other movies released in '99 involving a investigator trying to nab a an art thief, and two great ones. All those movies are definitely classics, but nowadays, but especially during those times were when just those movies that were released during the same year just had very similar plots. And I mean, to a lesser extent, Seven and Copycat both involved serial murders and a detective or two detectives trying to find out who the culprit was, and but that's more to a lesser extent. But one very blatant example of movies that followed that trend, you know, similar plots to the other, are these two movies. So both these movies, but the main difference is that although they have the same plots, they're actually very different in regards to genres. Dead Man on Campus is a teen comedy, and The Curve is a teen psychological thriller. And but both movies involve two college students exploiting a an urban legend in which if their roommate commits suicide, they get automatic straight A's as sort of a stress relief kind of thing. And there is like I said, there is a huge difference between these two. One's a comedy, one's a thriller. Dead Man on Campus, follows along the lines of other campus type movies like PCU and Orange County, college, and a little bit of Heather's, styled dark humor, because they involve you know suicide and everything. And The Curve, it more follows along the lines of such teen thrillers as Cruel Intentions and Wild Things. And it also has a lot of scream elements, almost to the point where some people would believe that this movie was actually a third Scream entry, considering that Matthew Lillard plays a sociopath in this film, as he does in the first Scream. And I enjoy both movies. I mean, they're not exactly critical darlings, but fuck what the critics say about them. I mean, they're not my favorite, but they are enjoyable for a good weekend. Like this was actually this was released through MTV Films, and this one was actually premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 1998 before being released direct to video. And so yeah, both these movies were released to release in 1998, and both, like I said, have similar premises involving, and like they are part of that trend involving, movies similar to each other during the same year. And like I remember, seeing copies of these at like, video stores, but I never rented them, so I had to reduce to like ordering them on DVD, because I couldn't find them anywhere else, not even at Blockbuster during that time when it was still around. So anyway, so one thing I do, another thing I like about these movies is that both of them have actually pretty killer soundtracks. Dead Man on Campus features, bands like, Marilyn Manson, his cover of Golden Years by David Bowie. It also has stuff like, Blur, Creed, Power Man 5000, Supergrass, Self, Elastica, Goldfinger is on it. Fucking a lot of good shit is on that soundtrack album. And, some I can't think of at the top. Oh, Soul Coughing as well. A ton of great stuff on that. And The Curve, this soundtrack is, isn't too bad itself. I mean, it has good stuff like, The and Amy Mann, Crackers on it. And like, oh, and the Canals, this band from TBT Records. As a matter of fact, the first soundtrack album released for this movie was released through TBT Records. The band Canals, they did a cover of Cruel to Be Kind by Nick Lowe for this soundtrack. And I gotta tell you, The Curve is actually what got me into this band. This is a band called the Wild Colonials. As a matter of fact, the band's main like guitarist and percussionist, Shark. He goes by the name of Shark, but his real name I guess is Sharkadelic. But like I said, he goes by just Shark. He actually composed the score for The Curve, and he's actually composed for like other mostly independent films, and but this is his band. The Wild Colonials is a very underrated, like jazz folk alternative rock group that formed, during like the early '90s. Like '94 is where they like truly took off. This album, Fruit of Life, actually was released in '94. Like they started off as just an impromptu like jam group. They would like perform at like local coffee shops, and like they would actually play with members from other bands like Flying Molly, Def Leppard, and like Hot House Flowers. Just different groups. I mean, that's just some shit that I read. But I truly enjoy this band. This is actually like I said, this is their debut album. They've released like three other albums, but like so far, this is like the album that I consider to be their most iconic. The song that appears in The Curve is called "Wake Up Sad," but unfortunately, it does not appear on this album, or I don't think anything else like any of their other albums. I think that it was just made for just that movie. And like that song also appears in another psychological thriller called Attraction, and I've seen that on television, but I don't own it per se. But I do remember watching it on TV. So yeah, the Wild Colonials, they're kind of like a bit like Hootie and the Blowfish, the Wallflowers, a tad like R.E.M, and like a bunch of like Irish bands like fuck the Waterboys, the Hooters, a bunch of like underrated, Irish folk groups, a ton of great shit like this. So I found this album at a Goodwill, and I figured that, I was like very, happy to find a copy of this album because I've heard of Wild Colonials a long time ago through The Curve, and I figured, just add this to my ever building, CD collection. Their single "Heaven and Hell" is a good song. You can look up the music video for it. And like this album is actually released through the David Geffen company. You know, his David Geffen, the record producer, Geffen Records. And like I truly dig this band. I truly dig like the since I am a huge fan of bands like Morphine and the bands that I just mentioned earlier, I figured, I just add this to the pile as well. I just love, underrated music. I just love like and this is like a very relaxing album to listen to. This is especially, true coffee house type shit. And it kind of makes sense, since I mentioned that they would just play in coffee houses back in the day. And but I would like I would truly dig this band. I mean, if you're into like shit like the shit that I just mentioned, and like I would just pick this one up. If you want to just like stream it and not like cruise through like the clearance sections of any other record shop, then just look them up and look them up on Discogs because they show a brief history of the band, and so I would just like certainly pick this up if you can find it at like a thrift shop or any other place. Give this a grab and see what you think. It's but yeah, definitely give it a go. Wild Colonials, their debut album Fruit of Life. I'm sorry I didn't give out as much info, but released through Geffen Records, and if you can find it, pick it up and just add it to the pile. Thanks for watching.